Hello and welcome to the first episode in hopefully a ongoing series that I'll call Lab Pals, where we basically look at things under a microscope. This series is not meant to be scientifically intensive, just more so a project to evoke a sense of discovery. Now, what you're seeing here is my little setup that I made, which is a Home Depot bucket in which I collect my water samples to be looked at and, collect some at night, collect some during the day. The reason there's a paver on top of it, by the way, is to keep anything from, like any animal from getting in there, but basically just contains leaf matter and water. And what we do is we just take a few drops out of our sample from this bucket, and we have the Grinch here who's kind of guarding my microscope, but he will allow us to take a look at what we have in this bucket. So what I have first set up is basically a Sony a6000 camera connected to the photo tube of my microscope by an adapter. And so that's how we get the following videos that you see here. So the first thing I saw from the water in our little experiment bucket is this kind of weird spike-shaped thing. Now it's stationary, but there's this little guy that kind of hangs around it, kind of a little kidney bean shaped thing that just hangs around it for a while. And then next thing I saw is this, which is this worm shaped creature that travels by making this kind of sinusoidal motion that you see here, where it kind of bucks back and forth with its tail ends, and that allows it to move within the water. And the next interesting thing I saw was this thing. I don't even know if it's living, but kind of looks like a cucumber with stripes on it, and little things hanging around it. And I saw this, I thought it was a cool geometric pattern. Also, don't believe it's living, but kind of has a cool aesthetic to it. And as the days went on, the life started to increase within the bucket. You can see there's a lot more things moving. So you can see at this point there's a lot of these smaller blob looking organisms that move kind of very fast, but I was able to find this interesting interaction here between, I guess, two organisms, or possibly one, that are dividing perhaps, and these two exist at this point in this kind of spherical shell, and they are rotating against each other as whatever process is taking place. So after some time elapsed, these organisms became more defined as they kind of rotated around each other within this spherical shell, and eventually they kind of merged into a single stationary thing, and I'll show that right here. So you can see that here, where they actually kind of combined at this point, and the motion slowed down, and now it's kind of hard to see both sides of the sphere. And so yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. At first I thought maybe there was some kind of division occurring, but it looks like that was not the case. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but it was interesting. This creature was one of the first kind of larger blob-like things that I was able to see. And I show its motion here. It travels a little bit slower than the smaller blobs, and it has a kind of static around it on this video, but really those are like little legs in a way and seem to help it propel itself, which is interesting. These are some views of the smaller organisms that are present at this point in our experiment. Some of these are quite hard to track as they move in and out of the focal plane quite quickly, as well as moving in the X and Y direction. A lot of them have unique morphology. There's also a lot of these kind of banana-shaped things, and they are stationary, so I'm not sure that they're even alive per se, but as you can see, the smaller blobs like to hang around them. I call this the cashew, because it looks like a cashew, and it has this weird kind of divot in the side of it, and it has a kind of port. You can kind of see it on the left side of it that opens and closes at a certain rate. This thing, it moves more like in planar motion, whereas some of the faster moving blobs, they move with like a twisting motion in and out of the plane. And here I've sped up footage where you can see on the left side of it that circular opening that kind of pulsates slowly. And this footage is moving about 4 times speed. And then I also show kind of the planar motion that is different from the more kidney-shaped blobs around it. So this kind of takes on this more steady motion, which I like because it makes them easier to track. And you can see this thing likes to take on kind of a more planar rotation here. And yeah, you can see it kind of gets caught up on little specks of dirt and things like that. But as you see, when it moves out of plane here, it has a very distinct kind of cashew-like shape to it. So that's interesting. This is a more oval-shaped blob that I also found interesting. It's a slow mover and kind of hangs around the cashews a lot. It has more of an egg shape, actually, I would say. And it just moves slowly, easy to track. Not much more to say about that. Then there's these little spheres that have kind of a alternating side-to-side motion, and these are interesting because of the next clip here. So I stumbled upon this organism or set of organisms where these alternating spherical things kind of hang out around the set of larger two, and it's hard to see in the video, but when looking through the microscope, these smaller spheres that are kind of hanging around the ends of the sphere, kind of the lower right and upper left of this structure here that are moving back and forth and alternating, they actually have what look like antennas that kind of connect to the larger spheres and pull at it. And you can see there are smaller spheres as well, doing the same thing, but in the center of where the two spheres connect. And then on the actual spheres as well, they seem to have openings that open and close, similar to what we saw with the cashew creature. Now you can see here at some point the smaller spheres eject, and there is like a set of really weird small like bean-shaped things that come off of it, or were hanging around it. But once all of those little components eject, these begin to move freely on their own, which I show here. So those were some interesting things I seen in the first week of having the bucket out. And then I took some samples from a isolated pond that is kind of close to my home. And I took them near the surface. The water is pretty murky, and I felt there'd be a lot of good biological material. I used my super advanced test tube holders here, which were in my backpack, and just corked them off and biked back home with them. And I had 2 good samples. And just hold them up in my 3D printed test tube rack here. So the first really interesting thing I found was this creature that was kind of hard to get a good image on because of its kind of awkward movement. This creature, it seems to move by kind of contracting its body. It has kind of an L shape, or a shrimp-like shape, and it appears to have kind of a spiky surface. On the front side, what I would consider the head, you can kind of see a pulsating thing inside of the transparent body. So the head opposite of that little kind of L-shaped tail you see. But yeah, it has kind of an awkward movement that makes it hard to focus on as it travels in and out of the plane of focus. But interesting nonetheless. And it also has kind of a twisting movement as it makes its way through the water. Yeah, and I tracked this for a bit, but got caught up looking at something else and kind of lost it. So I saw this as well. This is kind of a brownish green sphere-like creature that it kind of has an opening, like a small tube-shaped opening on what I would call the front side of it. And it kind of aims that opening where it seems to want to move. Its motion is quite chaotic. This one is my favorite by far of all of this sampling. I call it the teleporter. So it kind of jumps very fast. It's very hard to predict where it's moving. And you can kind of see like an aura around it where presumably whatever allows it to propel itself is kind of all around it and gives it that unidirectional motion. And that's kind of interesting as well. And it almost seems to also tumble, so it's not like a disc-shaped object. It seems to kind of tumble as it moves, and that takes it out of the focal plane as well. This is a stationary thing. I don't believe it's living either, but I really liked the patterning here, the symmetry, and found it to be particularly interesting for just the geometry of it. Yeah. This thing, it has kind of like a tooth shape. Um, it's like just a moving tooth, really. Like if you pulled a tooth when you were younger and you saw like kind of where the roots of it are. That's what this looks like. Where it has like a almost obloid shaped head with um, kind of like thin, sharp ends. Um, and then as I was looking at this one, I saw this interesting creature here. It's kind of a spherical shape as well, but it has just a spattering of like Y-shaped spikes almost all over it. And it kind of moves very slowly, just drifts. Seemingly uh, also has like that omnidirectional way of propelling itself. But yeah, those were the main interesting kind of highlights of the things I found in these samples I took. Let me know what you think. Thanks.